Ooh, welcome everyone to another episode of Slasher Scotty. I am your host, Scotty McCoy, and boy, do I have a surprise for you. I have on Zoom with me right now Jsu Garcia, and he played Rod Lane in the original 1984 A Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Hey Jsu, how you doing?
Hey man, I feel like a relic. How you doing, everybody out there? Welcome to COVID-free Slasher Scotty's TV show or Zoom show podcast. I'm here for you.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you on my show. So the first question I got for you is how did you get your start into acting?
Well, I got lucky. It's a lot of being. I knew what I wanted since I was a little kid.
Hmm.
I'm 57 now, so I was probably since I was a little kid. I wanted to be like Dean Martin. I was like
Hmm.
a person with no identity, but wanted other people's identity, and found myself through divorces and things like that on my parents' side. I ended up in California. I do believe in manifesting what you want, and
Right.
I would find myself running into people that could help me, and one of them was my agent, who
Right.
was Richard Gere's agent. I lucked out. People like Matt Damon were not Matt Damon, Matt Dillon
Hmm.
were. I don't know if you remember Matt Dillon back in the day, and what was the movie that he did? Ralph Macchio was actually in the movie in The Outsiders,
Okay.
and that movie inspired me that that they're going to be wanting young people. I ended up becoming Coco's boyfriend on the TV show Fame, MGM lot. Now is the Sony lot in California, and it was a really uh, the fervent years of there was no social media of like I need 13 million followers in order to be
Right.
liked and all this likey stuff. Everything was mysterious.
Mhm.
It wasn't really much. It was the agents that knew about it,
Yeah.
and you hustle to, and you worked hard, and you went to acting class, and I went to various acting classes, and got the TV show, thought I was going to be a star. Love, all young actors follow James Dean and all that. And we
Yep.
start copying everybody because
Right.
and I'll just speak about myself because I was completely lost about like who I am, how do I play that? And then through frustrations of 2 years of not working, I ended up going into an audition, which was Nightmare on Elm Street with Wes Craven. And I read my part from frustration, and I got the role. And then he's like, "Hey, you might sticking around. I need to interview the jock." The Johnny Depp role was a jock role. It was a football kind of big guy kind of role, and I was
Hmm.
like the Italian guy. The the
Awesome.
kind of I kind of based my role on Danny Zuko, Grease, or
Nice.
anything Travolta did. I was well,
Nice. Right. So before we get into the actual A Nightmare on Elm Street film movie, so I know that you do have a few books out. So what are they? The synopsis of them? Where can anyone find them if they would like to pick up a copy?
I put it in the chat room.
Awesome.
The Dreams of a Master.
Okay.
It's basically parallel to my life. I would say most actors, including me,
Hmm.
we parallels more to do things to uplift ourselves, whether
Right.
it be meditation. Madonna does the Kabbalah and this and that.
Hmm.
I found a teacher called John Roger. I ended up working with him and
Yeah.
being his driver and good friend. And he taught me while I'm acting,
Hmm.
he was working with me on how to be kind of zen in the acting. That which you pursue resists, it goes away from you. you
Right.
know so it's a
Absolutely.
game. It's a game in every vocation, especially
Right.
in acting. You want it, but you don't want it, because if you want it so desperately, it's just very heart-wrenching
Yeah.
on the anticipations and the expectations and all that. So 30-year career, I used a lot of my philosophies from John Roger. And I wrote two books after he passed, 2014, The Love of a Master, The Dreams of a Master. And I retired really from acting at 2013 when I directed my final, I co-directed a documentary about his life, 3.5 hours. I became a good filmmaker. I love filmmaking, according to me. And then that was it. I heard him tell me, you probably don't want to do anything anymore. And that was true. And my last big acting job was Atlas Shrugged with Ayn Rand, part 1. And I thought,
Nice.
I'll swan song out of this one. It's a really good script and it's a really good book. And
yeah, absolutely. So I have to ask this: the title of it, is it based off of is it a play on words for A Nightmare on Elm Street at all?
The Dreams of a Master. Well, okay, everything happens. The half your life is sleeping, if not more. And there's other ways that God or the higher power speaks to you is in dreams, including the negative power. And guess what? In Nightmare on Elm Street, when I was with Wes Craven and Mimi Craven at the time that they were married, and I asked him, hey, how did he said that these were nightmares of his, and he decided to make these into a movie. And even Shakespeare talks about it. I think psychologically what makes Nightmare on Elm Street kind of stand out more than most slashers. Monster in the box is the key. J.J. Abrams talks about that. But this is like monster in the box in your dreams. And that is psychologically, that went crazy for people. And it goes from generation to generation. Why? Because we dream, it's real. We do have what we call in the spiritual world, it's called Nightmare Alley, which is the astral level. So if you, on the spiritual spectrum of knowing the realms, if you were to say, where does Freddy Krueger live? He lives on the astral causal or the etheric. Astral, which is Nightmare Alley. When people say I had an out-of-body experience, I was flying, I got in a car accident, or I felt I got stabbed. Or remember when Heather Landing-Camp is running up the stairs and she's sinking into the stairs? How many people have had dreams like that where you just can't get out of the dream? So Wes, I think Wes, aside from the storytelling for an hour and a half of a movie, he really touched on some of the things that happen in our dreams. There's always some kind of weirdo or a monster or someone who's preying on us, or a predator, and we're running. It was a great, Shakespeare talks about what dreams may come. What dreams may come. That's from Hamlet. What dreams may come.
Yes, and the thing is, like, the scariest part about the movie is everybody can relate, because everybody has nightmares, because everybody has to sleep. Like, you can't stay awake for the rest of your life. Like, you have to rest, you have to sleep, So that's what makes it extremely terrifying. And on a side note, I had a dream one time, years ago, maybe 2 or 3, 4 years ago or so, that there was a baseball game, and I was turned into the baseball, and Freddie was pitching me, and then he threw it at the batter, and then Freddie's the batter, and I heard it right in Robert Englund's voice. He goes, "Batters up," and he just hit me and made a home run. And right before I would die, I woke up. Like, I didn't die because I just woke up. Because from what I heard, I don't know how true it is, but when you don't die you don't really die, I guess, in your dreams.
No, you don't. But you die in those levels, which is kind of good. You don't want it down here. We're multi-dimensional. We're not just the body.
Absolutely.
We're the mind, the feelings, the imagination. Astral is imagination. That's why when you see horror films, and in particular Nightmare on Elm Street, it really sets off the imagination, and it goes crazy. And people like to pay high money to get spooked.
They absolutely do. I love, everybody asks me, they're like, why do you why do you pay like $12 a ticket or whatever it is to go into a movie, and $20 on popcorn and snacks and drinks and everything just to get your ass scared? And I'm like, because that's my adrenaline rush. I get scared and I'm like, yeah, come on, give it to me.
My teacher John Ryan talked about sometimes people do that because they resolve things on those levels.
Right.
So they watch a horror film or they watch all these slasher things,
Yes.
they resolve it in that space and they don't have to go do it in real life.
That's a very
Yeah,
interesting fact right there.
yeah. So
Very
in other words, if I want to feel like I'm in a mobster movie, I just
right.
watch mobster movies and everyone gets whacked, and
Right.
it's an allegory. It's the watching shadows on the cave.
Yeah.
As long as you don't react, but you can have fun in it. When the
Right.
movie's over, it was just a movie.
Mhm.
The difference is when you've lost it psychologically is when you actually believe it, you know, when
Right.
you're, and that's why kids, it's very important not to do it. You have to introduce these things to the kids. They don't know
Yep.
what these shadows on the screen are, and it's an
Right.
hour and a half formulated
Yep.
film. It's a
Mhm.
ride. You're paying $20. Now it's 19 bucks on Apple. You're paying $20 to get a ride.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that like I'm an independent filmmaker. I have my own indie film company, Gravestone Films, and it's funny because every time like I would end up calling my executives and I'd be like, I'm having a bad day. Let's write some of our script or whatever. Or I would like write some of my script on my own or whatever. And I'd be like writing down, okay, this person's gonna die this way, this person's gonna die that way. Kind of get my frustration out in a fictional format because I'm not a killer by any means, and I'm not a type of person to hurt somebody. So how I get my imagination, and if I'm frustrated or something, I'll get it out on the characters that are completely fictional, on the paper or on the script, on the screen. And then when people like interview me about it, I'm like, yeah, I was pissed off at this one day, and I'm like, I wrote this scene for this movie just because I was in a pissed off mood, and like that's the way people vent their frustrations. Just like people, they work out and they exercise and they punch a punching bag. Like it's just a way of coping with those type of fears and those type of emotions.
Yeah.
So the next question I got for you is, how was your death scene filmed and prepped?
It was fun because it was, me and Wes. I really, I was a struggling actor wanting attention from a director, which is, it's kind of a no-no sometimes because some directors don't want to do that. So Wes was a hands-on kind of director. I worked with other directors that were as equally as talented, that were hands-off and more into the picture, the whole thing. Wes was into that, but he could do one-on-one with the actors. And so I was like, very method actor. And I was like, I'm having my James Dean moment with Elia Kazan and a director.
Right.
And so they had to pull you when they're strangling me and pull you across the floor. So I do remember it was the Desilu Studios over on Las Palmas or Gower, I think.
Mhm.
I think it was Las Palmas. And it's where today the Red Camera Studios are.
Right.
And and they had, fake jail cells. It was almost like an Ed
Right.
Wood movie. If you slam the things too hard, the whole thing shakes. So you had to hold the bars. The bars
Nice.
might have been real, and when the door goes clack, but
Yes.
if you slam the walls, they move.
Nice. That's
It's like a
awesome.
Harvey. It's like a Harvey Korman movie. You got to watch. But it was great times with him. It was the one time I was dealing with a substance abuse,
Mhm.
and I've been for almost 37 years clean.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, and I love movie making, so I would never. It was only one time I did the substance on the
Mhm.
set. Not a good idea.
Yeah.
You don't shit where you work,
Right.
and I really felt so bad, guilty, because it was filmmaking is artwork and singing
Yeah.
and all. To me, it is, and
Yeah.
I don't buy anything that whoever tells you that substances accentuate the art is full of it. So
Hmm.
it's really good to be clean in the vessel so that
Absolutely.
you're making art, man. You're not making anything other. It's not a horror film.
Yep.
It's an art film. And then,
Absolutely.
and you gotta go that way,
Right.
and it's not a judgment towards people that want to use it and do it while shooting.
Right.
I don't understand that. If I was a director, and I wouldn't tolerate anything like that. If you're using
Absolutely.
on my set, you're fired.
Right. And Lawrence Monason, I didn't interview him. I reached out to him, but I didn't hear back yet. But he mentioned in an interview that I did watch about he was in Friday the 13th Part 4, and his character had to be high, and then he gets killed off while he's high, and he said that he made a terrible mistake by actually getting high for the scene,
Yeah,
so
doesn't
he
work.
can be in the role. And he said it was the worst thing he could have done. He said his
Yeah,
death scene looks good, but it could have looked 10 times better if he wasn't high on the set.
right. And you know, I think I did a substance, a little drinking in this so I could cry.
Right.
But you know, part of it is a lazy man's. It's there are no small roles, but bad actors. You know, small
Right.
actors. I didn't want. I was a small actor then to think
Mhm.
a stimulus can do that. So
Right.
you know, part of it is I was still going to class and still
Hmm.
learning the
Yep.
trade. There is a skill,
Right.
and in acting, and if you use your skill, you see these great actors. I love Matt Damon, um,
Yep.
and Denzel Washington is such a supreme
Hmm.
skill man right now.
Yeah.
He's blended skill with his personality. I can't
Yep.
tell.
Absolutely. And
And
I have a lot to grow in acting myself. And when people say acting is so easy, I'm like, you think it's easy until you try it, because it really is a skill that takes a lot of talent and a lot of patience to perfect. It really isn't something you can just learn overnight and be like, I can be a part of a movie and bam, do it. It's really a skill that you can develop in that, but you can't like just learn it right overnight or within an hour. It's
yeah,
really not like that. That's not the way how acting works. It really isn't.
yeah.
So
And
the next,
it's
yep.
also it's a generous,
Hmm.
a skilled actors are generous.
Yep.
Of self-absorbed actors as I was are not. And you there's a whole lot of techniques that
Absolutely.
you can play with, and the self-obsession one is not a good one.
Absolutely.
You're not really supposed to feel it, you're supposed to give it.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
that's my technique. I mean, we can fight about this with any actor,
Hmm.
but the great actors have always given. They're not
Hmm.
they're not takers
Right.
for their own, so
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we spoke a little bit about Wes Craven, but how was he as the director, and what was it like working with him?
it was great. I had a personal relationship with him. I used to play racquetball with him.
Nice.
He was obviously older than me, but after Nightmare on Elm Street, we played a lot in the Valley, and he was good. I was good, and then and then that's all he ever called. We'd have lunch and racquetball, and then
Hmm.
he was. I had a slump in my career,
Hmm.
and then he was doing very well during the Warner Brother
Hmm.
period. He was doing that basketball lady with the that blew her
Yep.
head up, and he had already divorced, and he was doing really good. The Scream movies have taken off,
Yep.
and I wanted to work, man. So
Hmm.
I think I said I want to audition for uh, a Vampire in Brooklyn, Eddie Murphy's movie. You remember that?
Yeah, I heard of it. I don't know if I've seen it. I may have.
So anyway, it's an Eddie Murphy movie. He's a vampire. It's like Blackula, the first.
Oh,
Remember
yeah, 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 yeah. I know what you're talking about now.
the black vampire in the
Yes.
70s. So
Yes.
Eddie Murphy's this amazing, crazy vampire in like New York Bronx with funny actors.
Yes.
And Wes is directing it, so I play him racquetball. I play him
Nice.
for the audition. Now I didn't get the role yet, but I said
Right.
I'll play you, and if I beat you, you let me audition. He did, and I got a small role, and I made
Right.
up. Me and the other actor made up maybe two more pages, and we
Nice.
had lines and improvisations
It's
and
awesome.
funny lines, and we did a scene with Eddie Murphy, which is great.
It's
So,
awesome. I didn't even notice you in there, so I'm gonna actually go back and watch that now.
and
That's
then
an
I
experience.
bribed him. I bribed him again. The Nightmare on Elm Street 7, the one where he returns.
Yes. Yeah. Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah, and we're all around the cemetery because
Yes.
husband
Yeah.
died.
Oh, I do remember you in that as like quote unquote extra, right?
essentially an extra.
Yeah.
So, and they tried to get Johnny Depp in there and sort of a reunion. And I called, I don't know, they weren't even going to call me. And I called Wes and I'm like, yo, I'll give you my leather jacket if you put me in the role. I felt I shouldn't have done that because I could have eBayed that right now. And wonder how
That's
much I
awesome,
would have
man.
gotten. So Wes kept the jacket, and I got a part, and then I started to work. I started to take off and work on Mel Gibson movies. We Were
Nice.
Soldiers, Collateral Damage. Along came Polly, and We Were Soldiers reignited my career.
Nice.
And then I lost touch with him. And then I was going to these conventions, you know.
Hmm.
So I was creating COVID convention, by the way. COVID convention is you come to me,
Right.
send me $40 and I'll send you a photo. Boom, that's
Right.
it. And
Absolutely.
that's still going on. So just send people my contact. You
Yeah,
PayPal me
absolutely.
$40. Anyway, I went before COVID. I went to these conventions, you know,
Yeah.
and Wes passed away.
Yeah.
And it was the first time we were almost all reunioned, except for, you know what? Freddy Krueger was there. He was killing it. Robert
Right.
Englund.
Yep.
So he was killing it. So you get the leftovers, you know, when you're signing. So
Right.
there's Heather, Amanda, and I'm at the end getting the leftovers. and the big attraction is really Robert Englund most of the
Absolutely. Like I never had the chance to meet him yet, and I really would like to meet him. I reached out for an interview. He's so busy that he can't even make time for me because I mean, there's little old me, you know. I mean, yeah, I get a lot of hits and everything on the audio podcast and that, but like he does the big stuff. He does a lot of conventions. Like he's very high in demand. Like a lot. Like how can I mean? I can only imagine like how can you fit everybody on your schedule? You know what I mean? When you're Robert Englund, I'm sure you can. And
Oh, he doesn't have anything to do.
I heard he's a very nice guy though, and his
Super
lines are
nice guy.
yeah. I
Yeah.
would love to meet him one day. I really
Art,
would.
very, very, talk about skill. I would say, I would venture to say that he's an underrated actor. He's
Yep.
not Freddy Krueger. He's an
Right.
exceptional, you
Yep.
know, he got the role that kind of somehow it can also trap you. And
Yep.
that's, you know, you're just known as the honeymooners, Freddy
Yep.
Krueger, or, you know, Fat Albert. That's it.
Right.
And no one else wants to give you a chance, but he's an
Yeah.
exceptionally skilled actor.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, I can completely agree with that. And Robert Englund, like, I mean, he wasn't even supposed to be in the second of Nightmare on Elm Street. Originally, they had somebody else, from what I heard, and he ended up getting the part because it's like we need Robert back. Like, and I guess it was a money thing. I don't know the whole story, but they brought him back because I guess the guy they originally had, he wasn't the Freddy Krueger that it wasn't Robert Englund. Like Robert Englund, he was the one that really portrayed Freddy the way he should be portrayed.
Well, you know, it's a skilled actor that
Yeah,
makes the character
yeah,
live inside of him.
yeah,
So, you know, for years he was in a mask, and you
yeah,
don't know this Shakespearean actor. So he's,
yeah.
you know, not everybody can act, and not everybody can play character. He's a
Right.
character actor. You know,
Yep.
that's another thing. One thing is to be a star, and
Yep.
you're you're putting your personality out there. You know, like
Absolutely.
Clint Eastwood, you can't go wrong.
Mhm.
But then a character actor works
Yeah.
and hones in, and
Yeah.
Sean Penn's a skilled character actor, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, the makeup effects alone to get put in that, hours and hours and hours. I can only imagine that just takes patience alone. And Robert, he did it all, and he did it amazingly. Like like I can't look at anybody else's Freddy Krueger, but on top of that, I could see like he was in Hatchet, he was in other movies, and he did amazing outside of being a Freddy Krueger. You know what I mean? Like he is, like you said, a skilled actor. He really is. And so the next question I got for you, This one's more. You were in the scene, obviously. So, about Tina Gray, played by Amanda Wyss, her death scene. Obviously everybody knows how it is, filmed and everything. But for those that don't know, would you like to explain how that was all done?
Which one?
For when Amanda Wyss playing Tina when she was drug up on the wall and she
Yeah,
fell.
it was incredible. There was no CGI then that I know of, and everything was models and perspective kind of things, and then real, like
Right.
tongues,
Yes.
and real men, a guy's hand really in the tub
Mm-hmm.
because he's underwater, and
Yep.
it's
Yep.
so there was great uh, from the school of special effects. These guys were,
Mhm.
you know,
Absolutely.
in a low budget movie, but they knew what the art of special effects, and one of them is the rotating room that Fred Astaire did.
Yep.
It's famous. I think before Fred Astaire, it was Charlie Chaplin, because I start to look at Charlie Chaplin's when he goes back and forth in this thing that
Right.
and he
Yes.
slides back and forth. I'm
Yes.
thinking Charlie was the guy that did it. But this particular room rotates. They basically nailed everything down.
Nice.
And I do recall being upside down with Wes. He's over me, and I'm looking down at Tina, who's on the roof, but really the floor,
Right.
the
It's
ceiling, but the
insane.
floor. And
Right.
they spray, they basically hairspray your hair down,
Mm-hmm.
so nothing's falling. And
Nice.
so they're very particular. So this isn't upside down.
It's
So
crazy.
so when I'm like, and I was playing cards or goofing around downstairs. The box is up here, and the stunt woman falls on the gallons of blood on the bed,
Mm-hmm.
and blood splashes near me or
Yep.
on me. It was kind of creepy. I do remember that those were
Yep.
that's I only remember a few things, and hanging out with Johnny Depp, his ex-wife, the actors,
Yep.
Amanda, Heather, myself. We all wanted to be sort of like, we're going to make Hamlet out of this Nightmare on Elm Street. And
Right. Nice.
everybody was up for not making a Friday the 13th. We did
Right.
not want, because Friday the 13th is its own magic.
Yes.
But we didn't want to make it around the corner.
Right.
You know.
Exactly.
So this one had a tale. It had a story
Yeah.
besides Crystal Lake
Yeah.
or the creepy Halloween guy. I love
Absolutely.
all those guys. Um, each one of those is a fantastic franchise. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I never really was much into. I ended up doing Candyman 2, which is hilarious.
Nice.
But even that was a bit weird.
Yeah.
Tony Todd, but it's a fantastic idea. It's like,
Right. Absolutely. It
before
is.
even these young guys, popping out like Saw, and I'm like, okay, so there is like the grotesque part of horror films,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like a story, and the story is a killer. The
Yeah.
story, the story is Alfred Hitchcocky, it's like,
Yes.
so I think Wes Craven focused on how Alfred Hitchcock
Mm-hmm.
psychological, and not so much slasher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just talking about one. I don't know where they went with the franchise. They did this guy, they did this, they did
Right.
that, they inverted it.
Uh-huh.
It comes out. At this point, I'm lost. I'm just talking about Wes Craven
Right.
in the material of the writing before they went franchise.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
made 100. Star. This. It becomes
Absolutely.
where it becomes like, what is the story, except it's just better franchise, and it's about money, and it's there's nothing wrong with money, because I
Yeah.
get paid residuals on the Nightmare on Elm Street, thank
Right.
God, today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it's not a judgment. It is what it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
show biz, and so
Right.
Bob Shea making money. That's the way to do it. Whether it had a great story or not, it's debatable.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of directors in the series
Yeah.
that went off and did great careers. Actors went off and did great careers.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is obviously the start of Johnny Depp as well, as look where he ended up getting, and it started with A Nightmare on Elm Street. And one big thing is like they don't make anything like they did 80s horror. Like 80s horror is awesome. And then
What is that?
like they don't really do anything like they did back in the 80s. Like nowadays, I don't really like the horror stuff that comes out nowadays. I'm a big 80s horror fan, and I don't think anything really in the 90s was good up until Scream.
Well, one of the things that Scream was great. One of the things that
Yeah.
is a good writing is not to do red herrings. And there's a lot of sucker punching
Hmm.
in horror films where they take you down this, but it's not that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you doing that? You're wasting my time.
Right.
So now you're manipulating rather than get me engrossed in the story.
Right.
And then
Absolutely.
scare the crap out of me. But I don't like those TV shows or something. They just take you down over here, and you're like, you emotionally, and who would do that, and I really couldn't stand him, but is Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Big one.
I yelled at him in the lobby of a hotel. I was like, man, you're terrible for actors. He goes, what? I go, you kill them off. Why would I want to work with you? And it's like, I got two scenes, and then you're going to stab me at my wedding. He threw a Tigerian. He kind of thought I was funny, and he threw a coin, and I don't know, I gave it away, but
It's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I hate that.
Imagine Star Wars 1 and you kill off Luke Skywalker just
Absolutely.
like a third into it. It's like, what?
Like
And
a good example, I don't know if you ever saw this one, Halloween Resurrection. They killed Jamie Lee Curtis literally like 5-10 minutes in.
is that part 2?
That's the 8th one.
Is that the one that made her, or
No,
she comes back?
she was in the first one. She was the original Scream Queen.
But she was never killed in it, right?
They ignore that timeline completely because they regret killing her off. That's the one where they kill her off in the beginning, and then it turns into they do a reality show for Dangertainment in the Myers house, and they're actually being set up by, you guessed it, Karate King Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, no, Jamie Lee Curtis is why you want to go see Halloween.
Yeah, absolutely, and everybody was excited because they were heavily promoting it. Because in the one before that, in H2O, Jamie Lee Curtis decapitated Michael Myers with an axe. She agreed to return for the 20th anniversary. If we end it, if we kill Michael, kill him, let's end it. I'll return. You got me in. They did it, but they slipped, I guess, some type of contract in there or whatever that if they want to make another one, that they have to end her story arc. So they end up changing it or when she kidnapped Michael, when they put him like in the ambulance, that he actually switched places with the paramedic and crushed his larynx so he couldn't speak. So the nurses are telling the tale in Resurrection. So she knew that he escaped, and she was feeling guilty and faking being in a mental hospital and faking taking her pills to keep her calm and everything. And here waiting for Michael, and Michael finally comes after her, and then she sets it up, and then Michael's like reaching out to her, trying to say, it was like pretend that he's the paramedic again to make her think like you have to check. So she goes to check, and he pulls her over, and she falls over the balcony, and he ends up stabbing her in the back, and then she falls all the way like 5 stories down all the way onto the grass lawn and dead.
That's very Hannibal Lecter in the Paramedics.
Yep. And the thing that bugged me with that is that you're heavily promoting Laurie Strode in this movie, obviously because people are like, we're going to see Michael versus Laurie this time, not Michael versus Carrie Tate, who she had changed her name in H2O because she faked her death, which was announced in part 4. Trust me, the timeline is all over the place. And then they came out with, of course, 2018, which they ignore parts 2 through the Rob Zombie part 2, which is like from 2 to like, I think, 10. And then it's literally the direct sequel to part 1. And then they have now Halloween Kills coming out in October. And then Halloween Ends again, all 3 with Laurie Strode. ignoring everything except the first one. It's a mess of a timeline. Like A Nightmare on Elm Street actually gets it right. Like they some of the movies are not as good as the others, but they don't ignore any of the timeline. Like all the timeline is a perfect continuity. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's all like the same exact plot line, just different teams pretty much. Like, you know, it's pretty much the same thing. It's not like, you know, you're getting confused when if you start with part 5 or part 6 and then you watch part 2 and then 1 and you're like, what? Where did this happen? You know? Yes. So next question. What was your most memorable moment about filming A Nightmare on Elm Street?
Memorable moment. I think the end. We're all in the Cadillac having fun. And just I think we're all grateful that we're working. You know.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And nobody really knew that it was going to be a success, and I at least I didn't.
Hmm.
And Johnny told me, hey, you know, I auditioned for this other script. You should go up for it. So
Hmm.
it that information got me the next role,
Awesome. Just
and and it was, I don't know if Nightmare on Elm Street really did anything. I don't know what it did for me, except I do know that it it gave me confidence to do the next movie, and
yeah,
it get and work begets work, you know.
absolutely.
So it doesn't matter what you go for, but start working, because work begets work.
Yeah. So I have to ask this, the ending of A Nightmare on Elm Street. The doll when the mom gets through the window. How was like did that look like did you know like how did that come about? Did you know that was a
I didn't
doll?
see that. I didn't, and we did a version where we all live, because
Right.
we thought we were going to come back,
Hmm.
because it doesn't make any sense that Heather lives through all of them, but we all die.
Right.
So I don't know. I just remember the top of the convertible shutting down on
Yep.
us, and we're like, no, no, no.
Right.
And then the girls, well, you know, they filmed, hey Tina, you know, I had a dream, I had a heart on, you know, your name was written all over it.
Right.
And well, that was right in front of my high school, one of
Oh,
my high
nice.
schools.
Nice.
I think it was a high school. Nightingale Junior High School. It might have been junior high school.
That's awesome.
And I think they did Grease there. So
That's awesome.
yeah, look, a young actor working,
Yeah.
man, we were we were rock stars, you know.
Right. Now was Bob Shea, was he on set at all?
So not really. I mean, he was, I don't recall, but he and his sister were trying to keep the whole thing going.
Right.
They did
Yeah,
a good job, you know. He's a
that's awesome. Yeah, I
very
know Lynn had a cameo in it, of course, as the teacher. She was I guess it was social studies or some type of teacher. I forgot the subject off the top of my head, but she was in that, and that was pretty cool to see her in that. Yeah, so she has had a great career. She's in Insidious and all that as well. And of course, A Nightmare on Elm Street is the reason why New Line Cinema didn't go bankrupt. I mean, they really like, you know, A Nightmare on Elm Street was a rocket buster. It really did great. It really did. Like you could, I mean, you would never believe like that if you were to say it when you're filming it. Like this movie's gonna be, you know, a multi-million or billion or whatever dollar company, you know, movie franchise. And look where it became. Like, you know, such a cult following.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it had a rock star in it, and that was Freddy Krueger, you know, Robert
yeah,
Englund. And how you play that, so it doesn't become a guy in a mask.
absolutely.
It becomes like a burnt guy.
Yeah, exactly. You already got your Jason, you got your Michael, you got them in the mask not talking. Give Freddy, you know, some humor. I mean, he didn't get the humor until part 3, but he still had character to
Yeah,
him. He had
he was doing those Arnold Schwarzenegger lines and all the, you know, Clint Eastwood lines. Go for it, you know, or make my day.
That's awesome. So, what was the best part about filming A Nightmare on Elm Street, and what was the worst?
Probably the worst part is I heard I'm trying to recollect, get my memory here. They shut it down. They couldn't pay people or something. They were
Wow.
running out of money. And then they ended up paying people and they got back on track.
Nice.
I thought we were going to lose they shut down the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and that was I'm recalling it was 1984 during the Los Angeles Olympics,
Yeah.
and so I would say the best part after that, the best part is the fellowship and the friendship of Mimi Craven,
Right.
Wes, and the guys, and we would barbecue over Wes's house,
Absolutely. Yeah.
or hang out with Johnny and at his house watching uh, Last House on the Left,
Nice.
and all these old Wes Craven movies.
Yeah.
The uh, the 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 friendship that was developed at the time, and there's an old saying, it's not love, it's location.
Right.
So you're hanging out with your peers and you're
Yeah.
working. Ain't nothing better than working. And
Absolutely.
that's all I remember. And you're working in a studio, and I could have sworn it was the old Zoetrope studio.
Mm-hmm.
And Coppola got hit hard on One from the Heart.
Mm.
He basically losing it all.
Wow.
And then we shot in that studio, and it was the same studio that they did The Outsiders in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did Nightmare on Elm Street. There's nothing better,
Right.
man. Like the romantic part of all that is driving into the studios to work.
Right.
It's like
Nice.
the guards got like, now it's all like, I don't know what it is now, but they know you. Here's your thing.
That's
It was before 9/11. You can
right.
just, how you doing? Hey, Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, go ahead. Here.
Right. Now they probably the cardia and metal detectors and probably everything out the
Metal
wazoo.
detector, and then they put you like, they make you park like a mile away. Uh, this is like, now they make, like, Universal's got all these parking structures,
Mhm.
and there's just thousands of people working.
Yeah.
It was classy, and it was an Art Deco kind of studio looking thing. It wasn't so modern.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I think it was the same same studio that was using The Godfather when Duvall goes to Hollywood to get the role for Johnny.
Nice. So do you still talk to Johnny Depp?
I don't know him. I mean, I saw him in a restaurant maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Oh wow.
But that, I don't know Johnny Depp like per se. The guy that worked on Nightmare on Elm Street is different than the guy that did Pirates of the Caribbean.
Really?
So I don't know. I mean, he's very affected by, he speaks well, speaks different, totally intelligent, um, love and light. I mean, I've always loved him.
Right.
And I know he's going through a hard divorce or something. That's never
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm not I don't know enough about him, but he's always been sweet to me, and he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, 20 years is a long time, but he's
Absolutely.
always been gracious and nice to me. So,
Right.
and I've seen him be nice and gracious to others. So
Right.
I'm not taking a position on anything that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Not involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, 20 years is a long time. Like, a lot of people change in a year, let alone 20, you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, I've always been a fan of Johnny Depp, and he seems like a great guy. I've heard a lot of great things about him, and
I'm a big believer in, and I learned it from my teachers, like what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom.
absolutely.
It's like all this stuff being aired out is crazy.
Absolutely. And the reason why it's being aired out, obviously, is because he's a big A-list celebrity,
And
like,
how come they don't air out like Miguel fighting with Julia? down the street,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely. Exactly. So the last question I got for you is, do you have any projects, social media accounts, or websites that you'd like to promote to the listening and viewing audience?
Just you know, I'm a spiritual counselor. If anybody wants to hook it up, you know, you can go to theloveofamaster.com
Yeah.
or thedreamsofamaster.com. All those URLs go into one, and then
Mhm.
buy my book, review it, man. It's about dreams and living your dreams.
Nice.
And
Absolutely.
it's not you know, it really goes into the different realms, and then my teacher goes even deeper into those. Nothing to do with horror films, but in case you I pivoted. I stopped, you know, I did this interview. I'm always in cooperation for my show business life because it did a lot for me. So, and
Absolutely.
I love my fans, all my fans. Thank you
And
very
thank you
much.
for joining me. I really do appreciate it.
You guys keep getting younger. That's the one thing I must say. Out of all the films I've ever done, it's the one film that keeps mutating younger people. Like, I'll go to a thing and I'll go to a convention. I see my original peer fan, which is in his 50s,
Hmm.
or he was slightly younger, and then his kid, and then his kid's kid
Right.
in a stroller.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, this thing never stops. And Nightmare on Elm Street and horror films, I think, or maybe Star Wars and culty films. I'd say it's more of a cult
Yeah.
film, is that it breeds newer fans, newer and newer
Absolutely.
and different generations. And I have all sorts of fans. It's like, it's crazy. And that's one thing that's the other movies didn't provide that. So
Yep.
when I started to do, I think Mike Follop, got me with his friend to go do conventions, when I started to do that,
Hmm.
I got a feedback, like immediate feedback over the table about how many people love you. And then some people are clowns, you know, they're like, they will come up to you and go, I was hanging out with Roger Rabbit, Charlie Fleischer,
Hmm.
and and Charlie was slightly upset with the guy. I was upset too, but it was weird. But the guy comes up to you and he goes, "Hey man, you were on Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Uh-huh. So what you done now? Haven't done much, huh?" And it gets very weird. It's
Yeah.
like people don't uh they don't know the boundaries, they don't know what they're saying. And I'm not hurtful that way at all, but just across the hall you would see the cast of Happy Days, or you would see, you know, at the time Billy Jack, or you
Yeah.
would see Sammy Davis Jr.'s ex-wife. I mean, it was like, it was at Burbank.
Right.
It was crazy. It was like and then all these people line up. And especially when I went to Indiana,
Hmm.
and I had people driving in from Kentucky, Canada, and you start to really appreciate the Midwest and sort of
Yep.
middle America, all of it.
Hmm.
And you start to see the people that, you know, they're cruising in with about $70,
Wow.
and they're dropping everything, you know, for that signature. Say, you know, giving it to me, which I love,
Yep.
and they're bringing their kids. They drove
Hmm.
400 miles, and they're going to meet. That's where I kind of bowed down and got really humble and went, wow, man,
Yeah.
this is, you don't get that contact, you know. You're,
Absolutely.
as an actor, you just move on, go to the next thing, go to the next thing. And I went back in time to Nightmare on Elm Street to give you guys the signatures. I'm getting paid, and then I'm seeing the what it's done.
Hmm. Absolutely.
It's a legacy.
Absolutely. I'm 31 years old and I've been watching horror movies since I was 6, and now it seems like, they're not even 1 and 2 years old and they're going to conventions and sitting on laps of like Robert Englund. And when Betsy Palmer's alive, she said that this mother came in and wanted a picture of her with Betsy Palmer and her child who was like not like 6 months old on her lap or whatever it was. And
Who's Betsy Palmer?
played
Oh,
Mrs. Voorhees in the first Friday the 13th.
okay, gotcha.
Yes. Yes. So she's like, Why do you want a picture with me?" And say, and like, saying that, you're such a huge fan of Mrs. Voorhees, and like, what, she was a monster. And she would go, she said, the mom goes, she goes, "Because we understood." if anything happened to my kid who's on your lap right now, and he was neglected and was, you know, drowned in the lake because the people supposed to watch him were going off to have sex. Well, I tell you, I would want to avenge my son's death too. And I was like people like they really think like this. Like Betsy Palmer was quoted as saying that, I believe it was the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, that like 8-hour documentary that came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the horror conventions I met about 3 Jasons. There's the younger guy,
Yep.
the lake guy,
R. Lehman, right?
yeah, R. Lehman, that's right. And
Yep.
then the older guys, the stunt guys, and
Yep.
I forgot his name. He's the brother of Chachi's girlfriend from Happy Days. Aaron.
I think. Did he play Jason?
Yeah.
Okay, so the ones that played Jason, there was Steve Dash, Warrington Gillette, there was Ted White, C.J. Graham, Tom Morga, there was Derek Mears, Kane Hodder, Ken Kersinger.
I don't know.
Anybody?
There's a lot of
Richard Brooker.
See how so many of them, and
Yep.
Robert Englund lucked out. He got to do
And
all.
no, there's only 2 Freddy Kruegers. Robert Englund did all the films except the 2010 reboot, which was done by, I believe it was Jackie Earl Haley.
Was there a Rod Lane in the reboot?
There wasn't actually. It was similar. There was a Nancy, but there was no. I don't think there was any others. I couldn't get through the first one because the makeup.
Was there a Johnny? Oh, was no. So they're not 4 kids.
There are 4 kids. They really changed it up, like in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and the entire storyline, because of like some type of like child pedophilia sting that was going on at the time. They changed Freddy Krueger from being a child molester to a child murderer. But in the 2010 reboot, they switched it back to child molester, and like he would make some really uncomfortable jokes to like these teenage girls and everything, and it got really dark, really fast.
Well, that's why, because the original script was that he was messing around with kids, and I think that needed to go.
Yeah. Yep, and I know there was something Wes Craven, I believe it was on the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary or something or other, that Wes Craven mentioned about there was a child like molestation sting in Los Angeles around the time, and in order for this movie to actually want to be seen and it not being too close to home for a lot of people, he figured let's change molester to murderer at this point, which I think was a good move. I really do. Especially for the 80s, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like now where, you know, the MPAA like chopped a lot of stuff off, gore and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think that what they had was a really good formula, and it obviously worked. You know, we got 8 movies plus the 2010 reboot, which, you know, it's amazing. Like not many, you know, franchise films get like a franchise like that and become that successful. So it's great that Wes Craven and New Line Cinema had that opportunity.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
No problem. It's been an honor to have you on here.
Slasher Scotty.
Huh?
Slasher Scotty.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Be safe out there.
Thank you. You too. Before I let you go, I just want to verify your book is available on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, The Love of a Master, and I put it on the chat. Do you see it?
Yes, I do actually. Yep,
so The Love of a Master, Dreams of a Master. I'm an actual minister, so it's Jsu Garcia.
Awesome.
And buy my book, enjoy it. It gives me royalties, and I get to go do things
Absolutely.
with it. And remember, if you want autographs, hit me up.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, just to let everybody know, if you're watching the video of this on YouTube, please give me a subscription. Subscribe to me. And of course, like the video and everything. If you are listening on the podcast, rate the interview, leave a 5-star review, comment, subscribe, whatever you can do on the podcast. I'm on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, OpenBox, Castbox, Verbal, Breaker, Wooshka, Anchor, 25 others at least. There's a ton of them. This will be on demand and everything. Everybody can listen to this at their own leisure. So I thank you so much, Jsu, for joining me. It's been an honor.
Thank you, and have a great
Yep,
day,
absolutely.
year, as things open up. Is DC opening up, or is that?
I'm not sure. I'm about maybe 40 minutes from DC. I live like maybe 15 minutes from Baltimore City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm in Woodlawn, Maryland. Yeah.
take care, man.
Yep, you too. Thank you. You stay safe.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye.